relationship between Australia and China is strengthening economically. Has Australian government compromised its stance on human rights in terms of their policy on China?
Well, I'll start with Emily there.
I think the Australian-Chinese relationship in terms of human rights is particularly weak. There are many serious human rights problems in China, and at the moment Australia only deals with that through dialogues behind closed doors with Chinese officials. And really that's not good enough when we're talking about a relationship like China. And really the risk is that when you have these secret dialogues behind closed doors, that without support from public statements, for example, those dialogues actually just become a way to cover up abuses. So what we'd like to see is Australia becoming a much stronger advocate for human rights in China, and actually using a deepening relationship to speak candidly. You know, when you create a friendship, that's how you can operate. You can start to speak more candidly about issues.
Alison?
To which I would say, that's fine. And what do you say then when the Chinese say, we welcome your views about the way we deal with our people. Now, how do you deal with yours? And why is it that UN human rights commissioners have been rudely dismissed and their views disparaged by recent Australian governments? And one of them refused to come here just last month because of this. And the two aspects of concern for human rights in Australia are, of course, the way we deal with refugees and the way we deal with our Indigenous people. All governments hate human rights because human rights are the rights of the individual against the power of the government. And no government is immune from these sins. Not the Australian government, not the Chinese government. There are just huge numbers more Chinese, and they have a different tradition from ours. I would not for a moment go around the world saying Australia set an example to anybody.
Salkit, I'll bring you in on that, and the obvious question arises is, are the Chinese actually using these arguments behind closed doors? Are they saying, well, don't talk to us about human rights or Tibet or whatever, when you treat asylum seekers in the way that you do in offshore detention centres, or the way you treat Indigenous people? The two issues cited by Alison there.
Yes, I absolutely agree with Alison here. As in, there were lots of discussion within China. As in, when I talk to Chinese academics, it's not just Australia. They'll point at America, say what the Americans are doing to their own citizens, for example. I think at the end they want to create a discourse that is that all states are equally culpable when it comes to human rights issue. And I totally agree with Alison in this case. It's like, all individual rights, all states hate individuals' rights, okay? It's something that is antithetical to what the state is all about, okay? As I repeat what I've said, the state created human rights to protect the people from its own excesses. So there is no way that they can reconcile that kind of differences.
You're not seriously saying that all states are equally culpable when it comes to denying rights to their own people, because that's simply not the case. There are some states in the world where the people can vote out a government that they don't like. There are some states where that's impossible. You can't get away with that. But what I can say, what I can say when it comes to the Chinese achievement relevant to human rights is this: for all the restraints that I find intolerable of a Marxist-Leninist one-party state, the Chinese did do something which represented a huge quantum gain for human rights on this planet. They elevated 600 million people out of the direst poverty, bordering on starvation. And people in China today, in their hundreds of millions, can actually own a home and have a room of their own and go and buy food in supermarkets, which was not, they were not rights they had under Mao's regime. Moreover, unlike any other communist regime I've studied or looked at or thought about, 100 million Chinese each year can leave their country. Now, that was something that the Soviet Union and its allies never conceded.
Bob, so I'm going to have to wind you up, Bob, because we're going to hear from Michael at the end of the show, and you can finish your point, though.
Yeah, well, I just want to say there are huge gaps between us and the Chinese on human rights. and we've got room for serious and consistent criticism. But the Chinese will not only point a finger at us. The Chinese won't change because of foreign criticism. They will change, and they're bound to change, because of the dynamics of their own society. That's right. Because a Chinese middle class will insist on human rights being respected, and you'll have the sort of transition in China you've had in South Korea, in Taiwan, and in Singapore, from the strictures of a one-party state
that
to
was
something
quite a
else.
long point to finish with. But anyway.